GM friends, and welcome to the Metacast Crypto Corner brought to you by Naavik. I'm your host, Nico Vereecke, or Nico for short, and today I'm joined by David Johansson, CEO and co-founder of Metacast Studios. They're the creator of Blocklords, and Blocklords is one of the most ambitious strategy games of our age. And as a die-hard Age of Empires and Skyrim fan, I'm personally consider Blocklords to be one of the most interesting games in the blockchain gaming space today. I consider it one of the new generation of games that are a significant upgrade over the last. And so in this conversation with David, I plan to go a little bit deeper into some of the design decisions made around, how to use this new set of technologies to gaming. David, welcome to the Metacast.
Thank you, Nico. Good to see you again, and thanks for having me. Really excited to be here talking about Blocklords and the future of Web3 gaming.
Me too, man. Me too. But before we kick things off, I would like to remind you, our listener, that if you like content like this, please subscribe to the Naavik Digest newsletter. And you can also join the Naavik Discord, where me and others hang out, and we can have conversations about podcasts like this. And then finally, if you want to have some really, really deep insights, you can subscribe to the Naavik Pro newsletter. And if you use the code Metacast there, you'll get 10% off. All right, David, before we start, could you give us some background about yourself? What were you doing before you started building Blocklords?
Yeah, so I've been making games for the last 10 years. That's really been the core focus of everything I do. I can give you a bit of info about myself. Born in Sweden, grew up in France and Sweden, so kind of grew up all over Europe. Ended up in the US, where I started studying film. So I've always kind of had this creative bone in my body. Got into film, worked in Hollywood a few years, and kind of learned a lot about what it takes to get indie movies, independent films made. Kind of randomly ended up in China. In China, I kind of moved from film to game development and just fell in love with it. It was kind of rediscovering my old flame that I hadn't seen for many years, because I didn't play games throughout all of college, as I was so into the film thing. But once I got back into game, there was really no stopping. Was part of the early 2010s free-to-play gaming wave, where I really got familiar with how a lot of Asian studios were taking this concept of free gaming and finding ways to make it quite profitable for the studios. And as I was getting into that, I was seeing a lot of potential in free gaming, but also seeing a lot of issues with how these games were actually monetizing. So when I discovered Bitcoin in 2017, a lot of things just clicked to me about digital ownership, about monetizing attention, about incentivizing gameplay, things that I thought were brewing in free to play, but hadn't quite really reached a level of where it totally made sense to me. So in 2017, I kind of just decided, hey, let's go full-time crypto, and let's find ways to implement gaming with crypto. That's actually when I had the first idea for Blocklords. It was around that time. I think early 2018 is when I started putting thoughts into paper. We worked on Blocklords, me and a small team of my co-founders, for several years, and got pretty experienced at blockchain development, to the point where we decided, hey, let's take this knowledge we have in blockchain game development and let's create a game platform and a set of SDK tools that is going to make NFT game development, crypto game development, DeFi game development easier for other game developers. And that was the Seascape network. And the team grew from 5 people to 40 people, thanks to the Seascape network. And as the Seascape network was growing, we got better at game development. We got better at NFT integration into games. We kind of went back to our old baby Blocklords and decided last year, as everything was kind of blowing up with GameFi, to create Metacast Studios with the sole aim of making the ultimate Web3 grand strategy game, right?
So you had the idea for Blocklords, you started working on it, and then used that knowledge and know-how to help other games get developed. And then now you're saying, screw the others, I'm gonna finish my baby and this beautiful thing that I had in my head.
Definitely not screw the others. Screw the others. So Seascape is still supporting over half a dozen projects that are in development right now. A few of them have been released. And the idea is really to build on what Seascape has been doing, creating backend infrastructure for NFT gaming, and then using that knowledge to create a AAA grand strategy game that will really serve as the ultimate test case of what is possible with NFT gaming.
All right. So if you're working with Seascape Network, no worries. David still got your back. Good. I'm curious, did some of the learnings from working on other games influence some of the design decisions around Blocklords or around 2018 where you had the initial ideas and now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge part of it. And our history and our experience with chain, I'd say it's some of the more advanced in the industry, and it's definitely informed a lot of decisions and also how we approach on-chain and off-chain asset handling quite a lot. So as the version one of Blocklords, which was quite simple compared to the current one, it was a 2D game. It was top down. It was much more focused on the hero NFTs and less so on battles compared to the new version of Blocklords. We used to do everything on chain, right? The early versions of Blocklords had every battle was a transaction, every item was a transaction, every hero was an NFT, literally everything was on chain for version one, and we realized that caused a huge amount of UX issues. It was really hard to acquire new users because they essentially had to be crypto experts to be able to play a game, right? And this is still something that GameFi as a whole is finding, but I'd say we're at the forefront of exploring what should be on the chain, what should be off the chain, and of course, talking to the community and seeing based on what the community do in all these different versions of the game and all these different games that we've worked on through the years. We're able to really try to find the golden rule, right, between on-chain and off-chain.
Fascinating. Before we go into that, because I'm curious, like what changed, could you tell us a bit more about Blocklords as a game, so we can build on that in exploring what lives on and what lives off chain?
Yeah. So so Blocklords is really I would say it's a medieval. It's an MMO online strategy game, right? That's built entirely around the blockchain economy. So the core that were still the core in 2018 and is still the core today is you have a hero. That hero is an NFT. That NFT has a certain amount of stats, has a special appearance, and has basically a place in the Blocklord universe. As a new hero, you probably start off with pretty low stats, and you're going to have to work your way up. So as you work your way up, you could start off as a farmer, then you build your way up to having an army and being a warrior. If you conquer enough territory, if you conquer enough cities, enough villages, you're able to maybe earn enough resources to take over a city. Once you're taking over a city, you're actually a lord. As a lord, you're responsible for controlling your city, upgrading your city. But as a bonus, you also start earning taxes from everybody who's farming in your land, anybody who's trading in your land, and anybody who's kind of fighting on your behalf in your land, meaning that there's actually an incentive within the game to become as powerful as possible. And once you're powerful, it's also more problems, right? So you got to start dealing with contenders, you got to go to war against other people, and you got to prepare yourself to get attacked all the time. So that's really the core idea of Blocklords. It was in 2018 and it still is today. And we've just been able to add a lot more ideas and features and concepts around those original ideas.
It's fascinating. And as I say, more money, more problems. I guess that still counts on the blockchain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. That's great. And could so you said you have your character, which is a hero, which is an NFT. Could you quickly run me through the assets that you have and which one exists on the blockchain? What types of fungible and non-fungible tokens you have?
Yeah. So in Blocklords, we are really running with the concept that the hero is your NFT, and the rest is really things that you acquire that are linked to your NFT. But each asset is not an NFT or an asset of its own, right? So your hero is really the embodiment. It's your digital avatar. It's like you are the NFT, right? Your family is the NFT. So I'd say the core way we're using these digital assets in Blocklords is you start off with your hero. If you're new to the game, you register for free and you get started, and the game will mint an NFT for you for free. This will be your character. There will be some customization options, but overall, probably not that many as a new player, especially early on. As you start playing the game, you start as a farmer, you start amassing more resources. Those resources can be used to expand your farm. As you expand your farm, you start earning more resources, right? You play Age of Empires, right? It's like your farm eventually is pretty productive towards the middle of a session. And as your farm increases, you have a choice, right? You can take the resources you have and you can invest in an army, or you can take the resources you have and invest in mead. And mead is a really important resource that's going to be used to have children, in essence. And children is a very important part of Blocklords. if you like in many other NFT games, such as Axie, such as Crypto Kitties, you can get married in a marriage contract, and then you can have children, right? Now, I'd say where Blocklords is quite unique is that we're introducing the concept of NFT permadeath, right? So your hero, you're this guy you've been growing. You've grown farms together, you've gone to battle together. Maybe you even became a lord. Well, your NFT, he's gonna die. Like people, he's gonna die. So who are you going to pass on your legacy to, right? Because if you die without an heir, nobody inherits your farm, nobody inherits your army, nobody inherits your kingdom. So it's very important, and it's a core part of the game, is to get married and to have children. And it really is the driving factor of the entire economy, this idea of permadeath.
How does the death mechanic work? Do heroes have an age, and do they age automatically, and then at a certain point they die? Or how does that work?
Correct. So they have an age, and we have a time progression inside the game. So over time, they get older and older. And once they've gone very old, basically every day of the gameplay, there's an increased chance of dying, right? So the older you get, the higher the chance is. There is also some, if you get very unlucky, you could die early, although that's going to be very rare. And the more risk the user takes in the game, the more that chance increases, right? So if you go off and fight, you probably won't die after one battle. But if you fight and you get injured, boom, you're increasing your chances of dying with each battle by quite a lot. So it's all about the player's decision. Like if you choose to stay inside your castle, never go outside, yeah, you're probably going to be fine for the total lifespan, right? But if you go out and start raiding everyone, you're going to increase your chance of dying.
Interesting. And how does the aging mechanism work? Is this, if you don't touch the game, does your character still die? Or is it, every time you log in daily, then it ages? How does that work?
No, the NFT does age all the time. Once we activate the dynasty system won't be active for the very first part of the game's existence, as we want to test and make sure everything is balanced and good. But in essence, once the game is full, the NFT will age. And this is also a way for our NFT holders, for NFT users, to be engaged with the game. We've seen a lot of issues with other play-to-earn games or GameFi games, where basically whales just buy a huge amount of NFTs, then just sit on them or just lease them to other people to play, which is a great concept. I love the guild, and I like this idea of using these stable assets, but we definitely don't want a system where people just buy all the best heroes, lock them away, and hope they go up in value in 2 or 3 years. We want the best heroes to be used inside the game, to get married, to have children. And if you have really good heroes, you're basically wasting their potential if you're not having children with them.
Okay. And can you explain me a bit more about how marriage works? So if you start your adventure, you create a hero out of nowhere, you mint your first hero, do you choose a gender, and then you need a man and a woman to have kids?
Yeah, yes? Correct. So we are using male and female genders.
Traditional,
yeah, we are doing that. This is a medieval game, and yes, exactly. So you actually won't be able to choose your gender for the free heroes. You will be assigned. So basically your first character that you get when you play in Blocklords universe will be randomly assigned to you. You can kind of refresh a few times if you'd like, but overall you're kind of stuck with the choices that the randomized option you get. As you start playing the game, you start improving your stats and getting better and better at certain things. So let's say you're raising cows a lot. So in the game now, your stats are kind of boosting with each level, so that you get really good at raising cows. And now it's time to get married, right? You're of marriage age. You have some resources. You have enough. So then you can go to the church, right, in the city, and you can see, okay, who's available for marriage. And these would, in essence, be NFTs from other players, right, that are up for up for marriage, right? We would call it, but essentially they're up for sale as NFTs. Of course, some will be low price because, again, NFTs are generated by the users. It's up to a user if they want to generate an NFT, a basic NFT, and give it away or sell it. Sure, they can do that. They're going to maybe get some resources for it. Not a whole lot, I would imagine. If it's an unskilled, untrained NFT, it's not going to get very much. Or you can maybe choose to spend more resources or spend some tokens. And then you could maybe marry someone who's also very good at raising cows. And then all of a sudden you two have a child, and your child, you better believe, is going to start off with a better stat attributes of raising cows, right? And this is how, through the generations of the game, you can actually start getting better and better inheritance who are hopefully going to take your legacy to the next level.
Extremely good cow breeders. I like it.
Exactly.
Fascinating. do you, and this is just out of curiosity, do you intend there to be a trade-off where, if you decide you're going to increase your level of cow breeding, but that means that you can never become a master at, smithing or like any other skills? Does it work like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our game economists are working really hard on how these stats are passed through generations, and we also don't want to end up with, after 5 generations, everybody has like, level 100 heroes and everything, right? So there is a lot of balancing involved. There is luck involved. You still, even if you're born with someone who has good potential, if you don't use that potential well throughout the gameplay, that's not going to live up to the maximum amount. So. In essence, there is a give and take, and there's a maximum amount of stats that each hero can have. And at the end of the day, it's all about game balance, right? Is we want to make sure we don't end up with an army of super NFTs that are just going to take over everything all at once.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I really like the mechanism of death, and then especially it allows you some flexibility where the moment you have a child, you can actually, as a game developer, probably have some flexibility around, the stats and how much they inherit. And that way you can probably more easily balance these things.
Yeah.
It's really cool. What do you, sorry, go ahead.
No, just one little bonus I'll add in as well is that some people, I'm sure, will end up getting married, having kind of these higher skills kids, and then sell them off, which is fine. That's encouraged, for some types of players. That said, if you do that, for example, if you have 2 children, and you sell one of them, because you want to monetize. Essentially, if your second son died and you don't have an heir, whoever bought your NFT would have a claim to inherit your stuff when you die, right? Not all of it, but essentially the farms, the armies, and the kingdoms would be able to be inherited.
So it really closely replicates, whatever happened 1,000 years ago. That's really cool. That's really
That's
cool.
The inspiration, right?
Yeah. I love that. Okay. What kind of player archetypes do you envision within, the end state of your game? I can imagine there will be, breeders maybe specialized in certain type of skill, and then, they will flood the market with children that are great prospects in cow breeding or whatever. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a core thought. And as we're developing the game, we're definitely putting a lot of emphasis on the different archetypes of gamers. So as the core foundation of the game, we are making the game for 4 different types of gamers, right? One is the farming. So farming is the entry-level gameplay. You can imagine, compare Age of Empires farming, but that's very RTS based. So, but I would say kind of the mechanics of click and place. So that's very similar to Age of Empires. But then you have a Stardew Valley and Farmville as pretty good references for the farming experience. It's a bit more casual. It's a bit more just, log in, do your daily farming stuff, and then, log out, come back in a few hours. So a more casual gaming experience. This is going to be perfectly suited for free-to-play gamers and also for guild members who are just kind of looking into grinding and getting out the resources and then turning those resources into what they want. The second level of gameplay, it's more the hardcore gamer, right? More probably you and me. We like to go to battle. We like to go a bit deeper into our stats. We like to risk it a bit, but if we win, we want to kind of have a better reward. That's the warrior archetype, right? Once you've built up your farm, you have enough to invest in an army. Boom, you have your own army. You leave your farm behind. That's a conscious choice you have to make, right? You can't play it safe. Stay with your farm and go raiding. You got to leave your farm behind. Once you do that, you can steal stuff from other farmers and kind of become like the evil side, or you can take a salaried knight position with a lord and protect farmers, right? So you can kind of be an evil warrior or a good warrior. Both are fairly high risk, but higher reward than being a farmer. Mm-hmm. And then, so that's more of the adventure strategy gamer who likes battles. Then we've got the third level are lords. Lords actually are the NFTs that control the different regions of the map. It becomes much more about resource management. It becomes much more about city building. It becomes about tax management, economic policy, about incentivizing knights to fight for you, about putting in systems that will deter raiders from invading your lands. And most importantly, it becomes about getting as many farmers as possible to join your region, because you're going to be essentially competing with other lords for the best region on the map. And so that's more for the resource city building type player, and maybe the more crypto savvy. I think the crypto savvy crowd is going to love really the lord position. Mm-hmm. And then at the top, we have the king. Not everybody can be the king. I see it for a lot of guild leaders. I see it for those who are really, really degens in the DeFi space and who like to mint their own currencies, who like to invest in banking and insurance tech for their kingdoms. and they're essentially responsible for the entire health of their nation. So those are the four primary types of players we're aiming for with Blocklords. And that's as you hinted, there's going to be a lot of like smaller roles that are going to prop up in the economy to fill out a need, right? Breeding, definitely. We're working with Breeder DAO. I mean, they're kind of specialized in just the breeding of NFTs. They love the game concept. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of interesting models for how to maximize the output of heroes. Traders, who buy items, who buy resources, who sell them in different parts of the map. That's going to be huge. And to be honest, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more that we're not even seeing at this point.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, I think I have a pretty decent overview of what the game entails and what it will look like. I was wondering, you talked about land and cities. Is there a limited amount of land and kingdoms? And how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, correct. So in the initial early access version, there's only going to be 200 regions. So it's going to be quite limited. There's only going to be 200 lords and ladies and thousands of farmers, right, who are working for these lords and ladies. That's the initial. The way we've designed the map right now, we have a really cool paper style map for the whole Blocklords continent, the whole landmass of Blocklords. Currently, that has 3,500 regions in it. So that's the capacity we have at this point, is for 3,500 lords for the total game. And then the way the game's going to work, we're still balancing. We're still looking at the exact numbers, but it's going to take around 3 to 5 lords to vote for a king, because taking inspiration from history, right? The king, if he didn't have the lords on his side, they were kind of not able to do anything, right? So the lords are really the backbone of the economy, and the kings in many ways are figurehead that are going to have a lot of pressure, but that also get to get all the glory if they go to war, right? So that's kind of how we're designing it.
Are you thinking about around pay to win, where someone, who got lucky on some shitcoin and, made a lot of money and just comes in, that decides to buy a bunch of NFTs and set themselves up to dominate the whole game?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're thinking about it, and we've, with our experience in play to earn gaming and in free to play gaming, we've seen it happen a lot. So I'd say we're definitely leaning into that in how we're building out the game, right? And actually, we're trying to rephrase that from pay to win to pay to share. And this is really at the core of the game, is these asymmetrical incentives, right? It's the farmers, they provide the tax revenue. The warriors, they kind of either they hurt the farmers or they help the farmers. Who does that benefit? The lords, right? The lords earn taxes from all the farmers. And then, in essence, if you take a powerful position, whether it be a lord or a king, you are going to be incentivized to invest more in the economy. The more you invest in the economy of the game, the more you invest in the infrastructure of the game, the more not only you benefit, but everyone in your kingdom benefits, right? So a whale essentially is going to be incentivized to invest as much as possible in the region. Yes, they will benefit from it, but that's because everyone else is benefiting from it, right? And that's really how we're approaching the pay to win scenario. Is like, yes, you can pay to win against other people who are paying to win, but essentially you're paying to share the wealth of your region with all the farmers and all the knights who fight with you.
Super interesting. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now we started this conversation. You saying that you've actually worked with a bunch of games, crypto games, and I think there may be 100 people that have actually built a bunch of crypto games before they're actually working on their magnum opus, like you are. Let's talk a bit more about your learnings there. So you initially said that you initially had a lot of more of your game happening on chain, and now a bunch of stuff happens on chain. Could you give us some details and some specific decisions and designs in your game that you changed because of that?
Yeah, so I'd say early on it was very, very on chain. It was and it caused a lot of issues. Basically, making every game decision a transaction based on the current tech was just not sustainable. I think we're getting better and better, but we're still a good 5 to 10 years away from that actually being possible, of everything being on chain, right? Which you could say is the dream, right? Because then you can talk about truly decentralized game, which in my humble opinion is not quite. We're not there yet as an industry. But certainly that's the ideal. Going more into 2020, when we started building Seascape Network and we started doing a more scalable approach to how NFT games would be developed, that's when we started looking at, okay, how can we really mass mint a lot of NFTs while keeping the thing secure, right? And because what would happen is, because of this disconnect between Well, you could say this before I start rambling too much. In regular gaming, which is already very difficult, right? Making even a non-Web3 game is really difficult. You have the server interacting with the client, right? And you need to make sure that the server and the client are in tune all the time. And whereas in Web3, you have also the blockchain layer. And if you're
Mm.
cross-chain, you have the cross-chain blockchain layer, right? And so really what we spent almost 50 to 60% of the time on is how do you make this communication between the server, the client, and the blockchain layer not only secure, which is hugely difficult. I mean, you saw recently with the Ronin hack. This is just an example of what happens very often in GameFi is
Mm.
that hackers are able to kind of cross these signals before as you're kind of sending something to the contract or you're sending it to the server. It's easy to manipulate. So I'd say we've kind of shifted our focus from just the game or just the server to really security first, and then game, and then server. And sorry, I'm kind of rambling a bit, but overall, I'd say that's what we've learned is that it's incredibly difficult to manage this relationship, and the more we can streamline it while keeping the user experience as friendly as possible, that's the route we always keep exploring.
It's really good to know. How does this represented in the people you're hiring? Because most of the teams I'm speaking to, a lot of Web2 game developers, they have their full team set up that know how to make games, and then they plan on hiring one or two, maybe three blockchain developers, Solidity developers to implement the blockchain part. What you're telling me, if I understand you correctly, is that these things are actually where most of the risk happens, especially once we transact in value over the internet, and so. Could you tell me more about how your team is set up in that way? You say that 60% of your effort and thoughts go towards that. Does that also mean that you have hired a lot of cybersecurity people?
Yeah, so we did it the other way around, right? So a lot of teams they have a solid game team, and then they learn about the blockchain part, and then they figure out actually that the blockchain part is way more difficult than it seemed like. So we did it the other way, right? We started with a team of 5 people back in 2018, early 2018, and we decided to get good at the blockchain part, and we realized it's extremely difficult. And that is a warning I'll give to all these AAA studios that are coming into the space. Is it's actually way harder than it sounds. And so that's where Seascape comes in, right? With Seascape, we have already 5 years of experience almost now. No, well, 4 years of experience of making scalable smart contract solutions and then implementing those into games in a secure way. And it's been tried and tested. And this is why with MetaKings now, we were able to do what we've always wanted to do is now we're setting up this AAA game studio. So actually what was nice with setting up Metaking Studio is we didn't have to hire all the blockchain knowledge. We didn't have to hire all those, 1 million a day, 1 million yearly salary smart contract developer. We have a whole system with Seascape to train smart contract developers from scratch. And we've done it several times. And also just writing smart contracts is not very useful in the context of a game. You need someone who not only knows smart contracts, but knows how to handle client tools, wallet integration, server and backend interaction. So in essence, a good blockchain developer is a full stack developer. And I think just hiring smart contract developers is actually not quite enough to do the types of games we want to make. That said, security is a big focus. And while we do have internal security testing and internal QA to make sure that everything's secure, that's not enough. So we are partnered with Halborn, who's one of the top cybersecurity firms in the industry. And Halborn is, in essence, they have a security as a service model where every time we have a new product, every time we have a new concept, every time we have a new prototype, we send it their way. They test it and they try to hack it. And usually they're not successful, but when they are, we fix it. And so that's how we approach security.
That's really cool. Yeah. It's something that I don't think a lot of teams think that deeply about. So it's really, really informative. Thanks. You have been building a lot of games on the blockchain. You have a lot of experience with smart contract developments, with cybersecurity. You just said, and I found this very painful, that purely on-chain games are still 5 or 10 years away. I get really excited when thinking about the possibilities of these types of games. So okay, maybe I have to readjust my expectations and hopes. What blockchain are you currently working on, and what are your thoughts about the current blockchain landscape? Do you have high hopes for, given the experience that you already have?
Yeah, so in terms of for Blocklords specifically, we do believe in a cross-chain future. That said, for the initial NFT mint, we really wanted to work with the with the best platform or protocol to really be able to mint tens of thousands of NFTs in one go. And so the platform we landed on was IMX, Immutable X. They obviously, like us, have a lot of experience. They've been in the space since 2017. They've battle tested Gods Unchained, and they've created this really simple set of tools that we're able to implement into the initial mass mint of Blocklords. So IMX is definitely the one we're going for the initial mint, and we think there's a lot of potential there in how it can be easier for game devs to really use NFTs within their games without having to pay crazy gas fees or ask too much from their users. Also, chains I'm interested in overall. I like the Moonbeam and Moon River ecosystem a lot. They're building an EVM on Polkadot. I see a lot of potential with Polkadot in general, and how flexible it is and how customizable it is for enterprise and gaming solutions specifically. Obviously, what Axie Infinity and Ronin has done is quite impressive as well. And they have the user base in this space, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of great things coming from Ronin in the future, and also with the recent security breach, I think they've learned from that and they've been able to patch up quite a bit. But honestly, there's so many chains to choose from. Polygon doing great things, Harmony doing great things, BSC doing great things, or BNB chain as it's called now. So I think overall the future is cross-chain, and just committing to only one protocol is problematic and not in the interest of our users, in my opinion. For example, being able to take your NFT and let them travel around the chain and maybe gamifying that experience, for me, that's going to be more the future of blockchain game development. And the idea is really, it doesn't matter where your asset is, as long as it's liquid and as long as you can use it in the game. For me, that's the most important.
So are you saying that we could see a world where if you want to travel from one region within Blocklords to the next, that actually means that you're going from, let's say, Ethereum layer 2 to Polygon or something?
That's possible. That's not really in the scope. We're trying to keep the map. It's Blocklord. You're traveling in the Blocklords universe, but in essence, your Blocklords could get on a boat and maybe go visit Solana or go visit Ethereum. That's more for the next few versions.
Yeah, of course. That's really interesting. When talking about scaling, I'm curious, how do you plan on getting your first 10,000 players? And then how do you plan on 100xing it to 1 million players after that?
Yeah, so the initial whitelisting phase, which is what we're going to enter quite soon, actually, where the initial farmers and lords and ladies of the Blocklords universe are going to be minted. That's really going to be the process with which we get our first 10,000 users. It's going to be pretty focused on the Web3 community. It's all about getting the GameFi users and obviously previous partners. And then we have so many supporters, such as yourself, in the Blocklords ecosystem. So it's all about getting all of you in the Blocklords initial NFT mint, which is going to be focused on banners. And these banners are really the it's actually 60 great families of the Blocklords universe, right? So as you get these banners, you can kind of get your piece of the Blocklords system. You can claim heroes, you can claim farmers with this. We have we haven't announced the details yet. We have a pretty interesting NFT sale that's going to come up on IMX. So that's the initial set of users we want to attract. It is the Web3 community. It is the NFT community. For the second phase, when the game is launched, when the game is balanced, and when really the traction can start building, the game is going to be free to play, right? And anybody who joins will not need a wallet. They will just need to register. The game will have a wallet for you as you register your account. We're using similar systems to Magic Wallet and Nifty Wallet to create your. So we don't have to do the private keys or anything. You'll have your own little free hero NFT in your wallet. And as you play the game, as you build your farm, you won't necessarily have to deal with the fact that you have an NFT, because the NFT is just that. It's a digital asset. It's you playing the game, right? And as you play the game, your NFT builds up in value. Now, what that value is, it's maybe not money, maybe it's in-game resources, maybe it's battle potential, maybe it's potential taxes if you become a lord, right? And as you kind of build up the value of your NFT, you will slowly be introduced to ways to monetize that, right? Whether it's sell your NFT to someone else, rent your NFT to someone else, go fight for someone else, do something that provides value to the ecosystem. And for us, that's really the mainstream adoption moment. Even if it's not us that makes it happen, it's going to be one game, one or the other. That's smooth enough, fun enough to attract millions of users. And then when they start playing, they'll realize, oh, this is actually something I can do something with, right? Whether it's stake it in the platform or sell it or do something, right? And then they're in crypto.
Do you see a future where, people in the short term, let's say like within the next 5 years, actually like significantly make a living by playing a game? It could be Blocklords or another one.
I think making a living is a loaded suggestion. I mean, I think people are already making a living playing games, right? Not even outside of crypto, whether it's streaming, whether it's esports. I think most importantly, it's the shift. The shift is not so much about guaranteeing an income for everyone, although people will always find a way to get an income. So I think that's already happening, right? I think really for me, the goal with Blocklords is showing users that their time in game is worth something. Even if it's not, guaranteed income, even though it's not, like a crazy riches, it's like, okay, you're spending your time, you're devoting to this ecosystem, you're contributing value, which is something missing in GameFi, right? It's a lot about value extraction. It's not so much about contributing. So that's really what we're trying to do with Blocklords is every class kind of contributes something to the overall economy. But most importantly, what you're doing in game has value to someone else than yourself.
So this specific question I've asked a lot, talked a lot about, and this was probably the best and most nuanced response I've ever had. So that was really good. Thanks for that, David. That was good. Great. All right. This was all very fascinating. I like to end these interviews with a bold prediction. So David, you have like a wide range of bold predictions you could make, but can you give me one focused on blockchain and games and maybe the future or something?
Man, that's a tricky one. I think in 5 years, all Web2 massive game publishers, whether it's EA, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Steam, they're all going to have a Web3 component. 100% of them. That's my prediction.
Okay, 5 years. Relatively safe, but I'll accept it. What is?
Let's make it 3.
Okay, good. That's better. One last question: what is currently your major hurdle that you have in building out Blocklords? Like, what are you working on the hardest?
Yeah, I'd say making games is really, really hard. So it's all a major hurdle, but it's all very exciting as well. Whether it comes from 3D development, network programming, obviously the blockchain, the security components. I'd say our biggest hurdle, which is also a challenge that we enjoy, is driving a remote team of 100 people. It's I think most of us, I'd say we're a slightly older team than most other blockchain teams in many ways. We come from a Web2 background, many of us, and not having that routine of going to the office and meeting and getting to know each other on a more personal basis. I do think a lot of us miss that, but also we all realize that the fact that we are remote and that we have people in Shanghai, US, Europe, we're everywhere. It's allowed us to really get together a unique group of team members who are very talented, all of them. So I'd say the remote lifestyle, even though it's brought a lot of benefits, that's probably our biggest challenge as well.
Feels like that opens up a discussion around DAOs and their function, because you guys have experience working together or working in a Web2 building games, and now there are a lot of decentralized teams who aim to do it with on-chain voting, etc. Curious to see how that will play us out.
Yeah, in terms of DAOs and gaming, I'm a bit old. I'm a little skeptical for that in the current standing, because at the end of the day, like filmmaking, I believe game development is a hugely creative endeavor. And to make a good game, it doesn't take 10 decisions. It doesn't take 100 votes. It takes thousands or even millions of decisions on a very regular basis. And for me, DAOs are not at the point yet where they're efficient enough to make something as complex as its AAA strategy game. But I know it will happen. When, I don't know, but it will happen, and I look forward to that day.
Yeah. I think the more nuanced view that people have tends to be that community will have some votes, limited in scope. What color do you want our background to be, and stuff like that. That doesn't have like any major impacts on the game.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, we do want to have a treasury where some of the fees from the games goes to that the community will have some voting over. So we
Mhm.
definitely want to have some impactful choices without, saying, oh, the DAO will control everything because that's also not sustainable. So we're trying to find a good balance for those things.
Fantastic. All right. So when can people expect something to play?
Oh, I'm very cautious to give dates. That's in general something I want to avoid. For us, really, quality is the key, and making a game like this is quite complicated. We're really aiming to have something out for users to try this year. The NFT sale will be taking place this summer, so people can get a piece of the Blocklords ecosystem. And definitely, 2023 will be the major year for Blocklords to start seeing some real traction and gameplay.
All right. We'll be patient then. Very exciting. Finally, where can people stay up to date on where Blocklords is?
Yeah, so blocklords.com is really the place. We're at Blocklords on Twitter. I'd say our Discord server, if you want to get in on the Blocklords lore, there's actually already a farming and lord management game up on Discord. So Discord, blocklords.com.
Nice. Fantastic. All right. Well, David, this was fantastic, super insightful. I'm personally very excited with all of my Age of Empires experience to maybe become a lord or get really good into cow breeding. I still have to think, what my farmer alter ego would be. But I guess, with Blocklords, I'll be able to figure it out.
Perfect. Thanks, Nico. And thanks for everything you do for the space.
Hey, this is my pleasure. I get to talk to intelligent and well-spoken people like yourself and dream about these games and then, at some point try them out and give my honest feedback. So, yeah, this was amazing. David, thank you. Listener, thank you as well. Hope you enjoyed this. And with this, we're out and we look forward to speaking to you in the next episode. Cheers.